You're listening to Fighting Back News Talk, current events, and political commentary. Now here's the host of Fighting Back, Uncle Ronnie.
Well, hello and welcome back. Before we get going, I wanted to just say one of our sponsors is putting on an Arizona political items collectors show this May 1st it's going to be in Phoenix. It's going to be at the Mountain View Lutheran Family Church, 11002 South 48th Street in Phoenix, 85014. And they're going to have political buttons from all around the country, and especially our president. And I don't know how far back it goes. It's going to be really interesting. I've seen.
Oh, it's going to be really neat.
I'm seeing that, and this is Martha's husband, Ron, is
Yes.
putting on this event, and so
We just saw Martha, Janet King.
Yeah. And this is an event that is really, and we're going to have our very own Teddy Roosevelt there.
Yes, yes.
So at any rate,
He's a Rough Rider.
Teddy and the Rough Riders, and of course, who else will be there? Ray?
I wonder if they're going to bring a teddy bear as well.
Ray's going to be there, I believe, with Street
yeah.
Talk.
Yeah.
So at any rate, we want to talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on down at the state capitol. And Josh, you probably are the one that is the most up to date about this. Randy had been down there, the gentleman we just had on the phone, and he was doing some surveillance on some of the issues for security. And I know you've been concerned. You've been calling for that when you were here last time.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I think the National Guard should be not just on the border, but it should be at the audit for sure. We cannot allow anyone to threaten any of the canvassers, any of the auditors, any of the workers there as well. One thing that I'm nervous about is that with Perkins Coie and the two law firms in Arizona that are now on the ground working, behind the scenes doing whatever they're doing, they've actually been kind of quiet for about 5 or 6 days now. And that worries me because I would have thought by now they would have tried to initiate some type of emergency, procedure or legislation or something to try to stop it. So far, thankfully, they haven't done that. So that makes me think as though, well, maybe there's a reason they're not doing it, and I think everyone should be very cognizant of the fact that Katie Hobbs, the very far left radical Secretary of State, is a bought and paid for George Soros puppet. One of the things George Soros did a while back was he realized two positions that were critical to trying to overthrow America. One of them was the Secretary of State's offices. Why? Well, because they obviously control elections. The second one was the attorney generals. They would then be in charge of prosecuting or not prosecuting certain people. So in other words, you have your bandit, you have your army of thugs, whatever you want to call them, get together and disrupt things, and they get arrested. But yet now in all of these different states, there are attorney generals, there are district attorneys that will not prosecute criminals. Okay, they let them out on bail all the time. Well, you have Benson in Michigan. You have Katie Hobbs in Arizona. You have other secretaries of state, Rathesberger, many others. Again, his brother is very tied to the CCP. So what we have to worry about is the Secretary of State in Arizona trying to control the narrative here, trying to control the audit. Remember, there was an April 1st secret meeting between the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors and Katie Hobbs, and no one really knows the details of that. Not to mention millions upon millions of dollars have flown in from Vote One, or I Vote is what it was called. It used to be known as the Secretary of State Project. This is a George Soros paid for, as well as Hillary Clinton, other priorities and things like that. Some of those other left-wing groups are all part of this. So what I'm worried about, essentially, is Katie Hobbs, the Secretary of State in Arizona, butting into this process. Now, I don't know exactly what she could do, but that is something that I think we have to be cognizant about.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't heard any other information, but I haven't been on top of this the last couple days. But there was a report that the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors was still unsure of exactly what they were requesting and how to do it. There wasn't specific instructions given to them by the Senate of what they need to do and the time frame and what actual equipment. And they're saying, look, we're just waiting for instructions. Is there anything recently happening on that?
Well, I can say that the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors are obstructionists.
Yes.
They are definitely not wanting this audit to continue to go forward. You know, we have to understand that this is a house of cards. And right now, this entire election is built on a bunch of cards stacked up one on top of another with a point. What we're about to do, hopefully, is we're going to rip out that bottom card. And what's going to happen is that house is going to fall. And it hopefully is going to fall in Maricopa County, and then it's going to fall in Windham, New Hampshire. And I have some very interesting updates in Windham, New Hampshire as well. But concentrating just on Arizona for right now, the Board of Supervisors has been a complete block, the whole time, from delaying it till after the election to, ignoring subpoenas to then trying to counter sue. And thank God we got the judge's decision that was able to allow the audits to go forward. Then, of course, we had Karen Fann and the Patriots in the Arizona Senate pass legislation to make sure that they took back their plenary power to be able to do these audits. The judge, Tim Thomason, signed off on that, saying that, yes, they have the ability and the right to look into the election. So all of that is on our side, thank goodness, okay? But we do have a situation where I believe the governor of Arizona signed fraudulent documents certifying the election.
As did the Board of Supervisors.
As did the Board of Supervisors,
And
as did Katie Hobbs.
Right.
And they don't want this information to come out, and they're trying to protect it as best they can. Our job, number one, is to see this through to the end. We have to understand that we are up against a hostile communist takeover. It started on the 3rd. It started way before that, actually, with the Kung Flu and putting that into place to get the laws changed in order to basically get to where we're at now. But the reality is we are dealing with hardcore communists, and they want to overtake this country. And it's a damn about time that we start to recognize that, and we need to fight back against it.
I agree. By the way, this is the same Katie Hobbs, we've talked about this before, that in 2018 said that Trump supporters were all neo-Nazis.
Correct.
And now this
Correct.
is your nonpartisan Secretary of State that is in charge of the election process in Arizona.
So do we know if specific instructions have been given to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors to say, this is what we want, this is the time frame, this is how it's going to be done? Because they can always say, well, you didn't ask for this, and possibly those law firms are setting it up.
They can go hide, and they can go to the folks in the media, and they can cover for them.
Hey, they didn't
and that's
ask,
what they did.
They
in the
didn't
past.
ask us for that.
Right.
Hey,
and that's
we
what
would
they
have
did in
been
the
more
past.
than willing to cooperate, but they all they had to do was ask.
Right.
I can see that scenario kind of playing out. Now, with regard to security, I had the privilege of speaking to Secretary Bennett. He felt very, very confident. There's going to be full disclosure. There's going to be monitoring video that the citizens of Arizona can see it in real time, that the information and the equipment and everything, there's going to be a chain of custody coming in. They're going to be fully protected. Everybody's coming in. And do we know of anything else that's happening in the background? Can you share with us? I know that we have Liz Harris and her team is watching. They've been incredible, doing such a fantastic job. We love all of you guys.
And they have cameras that have been active down at the Coliseum all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will want to thank them for their hard work. They are working tirelessly, and these are all volunteers. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. There are so many people who would wish that they had the time and the effort to do that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But I know that when you were here last, you mentioned that there were some outside forces and that we should really be on guard. And it basically comes down to situational awareness. And this is for everybody, no matter what you're doing in your walk of life. Any place you go, whether it's walking up to the ATM, whether it's walking down the street or going into a supermarket or coming back to your car late at night after work, to be aware of the situation around you, situational awareness. You walk into a place, it doesn't feel comfortable, the best thing to do is get out of there. Yeah. So from that situational awareness perspective, how are we doing knowing that we're going into a very...
it's a critical time when there are people that have a lot to lose.
Correct.
As well as people that have a lot to gain.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah,
well said.
This is ground zero. Arizona, Maricopa County is ground zero. And the buck stops here. And the Patriots have fought way too hard. Liz, the entire group, all the Patriots out there that have given everything they can to make sure that there is voter integrity and to uncover what happened in this election. This has been an ongoing battle. This is not something that we started last week or even last month. We started this right away. And God bless Liz for doing it and really being the leader of it. She probably doesn't want to hear that because she doesn't want to be targeted.
She's very modest.
But she's just been fantastic. And I'm just so honored and privileged to even be able to help out in any way that I could.
She's a great person.
There's a lot of stuff going on, not only in this state, but I mean nationally. You have you have key figures. I won't mention all of them, but key figures that have been preparing us for this moment. And I just want to make sure, from a situational awareness perspective, that we are prepared for just about anything that can happen, because those outside influences, as they affected the recent court case, those outside influences can push people and they can scare people. And a lot of times people will bail. They'll say, look, it's not worth me being threatened. It's not worth me being put in harm's way.
And we just saw some of that with the court case we discussed earlier, where, if you were a juror, how would you like to be the one that said, no, I don't?
And somebody saying, hey, we're going to know your name. We're going to know where you live. We're going to know your family. So how does it sit right now, knowing that this is starting very, very quickly? How are we feeling about the whole thing?
Well, I would say cautiously optimistic, I guess would be the best way to say it. We have heard from General Flynn and from others that there are certain elements that are coming into Arizona. What we have to understand is that this is the wild, wild west. This isn't Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, Washington. We are an armed state. To the teeth. There are a lot of people.
Second Amendment sanctuary city.
The Second Amendment.
Sanctuary state.
I would just say, that this is a totally different atmosphere and landscape if these folks are coming in from another
and
location.
Expecting the population to be docile.
Right. And
it's not a docile population.
You could have an 80-year-old woman, or you could have a 21-year-old man. You don't know who it's going to be. There are people that are carrying at all times here. So, all I can say is we hope that there isn't violence. We hope that there's not disruption. And we hope that there is no elements out there that are going to try to stop this in any way. Because I can tell you there will be a counter attack to that, and we will not allow this to be stopped. We will continue to get this audit done.
And we don't want public damage.
No.
We don't want people lighting fires or stopping traffic or creating any havoc here. We just want to see everything as it should be done. And I think
as we have said, Ray, there's nothing like sunshine and fresh air to disinfect anything that's troubling here. Yeah. And we want everything to be above board, where the population of this state and the whole country and the world knows whether Arizona had an honest, open election.
And everybody should want that. Everybody should want that.
Accounting process that was open.
Of course. Everybody should be accountable for the work that they do. Ron, you're an accountant. Were you ever audited?
I are an auditor.
You are on account of what?
I've never been accountable.
I don't know if you want to get into New Hampshire at all, but
yes,
sure.
That's next on the agenda here, folks. And I'm cautiously optimistic about New Hampshire as well. The Patriots out there have done an amazing, fantastic job getting it to the governor's desk, having him sign it into law. I'm referring to SB 43. Which is basically the Wyndham Act, allowing them to do the forensic audit in Wyndham, New Hampshire. But here are some of the concerns. first and foremost, the Attorney General's office did not investigate under any circumstances voter fraud in New Hampshire, and the Attorney General's office is supposed to pick one of the 3 auditors. The other thing that's concerning is the longest standing Secretary of State in U.S. history happens to be a Democrat. He's called King Bill Gardner in New Hampshire, the Secretary of State, a 23-term Secretary of State.
23
He's been in office
terms?
since 1976. Yours truly was 1 year old. He, a Democrat, been in office since 1976, is supposed to pick the second auditor, okay? Now, the third auditor is supposed to be picked by the board, the Selectmen Board, okay, the Selectmen Committee, which are 5 people, and 3 of those 5 people were actually overseeing the November 3rd, 2020 election, okay? One of which said that under no circumstances will we ever have a forensic audit, and one of them, Ross McLeod, is actually under investigation right now for witness tampering. So my question is to the folks in New Hampshire.
People.
Now, I understand there was a meeting the other night, and they were going to do the audits and pick who the auditors were going to be in darkness. In other words, behind closed doors. That has now been changed to where it's going to be an open public forum. But my question is, why is it that in the state of Arizona, Karen Fann and the Arizona Senate were the ones that got to choose the auditors, but yet in the state of New Hampshire, the representatives that passed the law, 24-0 in the House, 21-0 in the Senate, and then signed on by Governor Sununu, why don't the representatives pick the auditors? Why are we letting the selectmen, why are we letting a Democrat Secretary of State and anyone else pick these auditors?
So what is,
doesn't make sense
what's
to
the
me,
answer?
Patriots.
What's the answer? How did they get chosen? And shouldn't they recuse themselves if they've already
Exactly.
stated those?
But they're not honorable people, Ray.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right.
Honorable people would recuse themselves and say, I have an interest in this, the outcome of this
Right.
election,
So-
and therefore I'm going to hand it over to a neutral party.
So why did the legislators allow that to happen?
I can't answer that. I don't know if it's something in the New Hampshire, Constitution or something. If it's a chain of command issue, I don't know. But what I do know is that there's no way a 23-term Democrat Secretary of State, who is the longest-serving Secretary of State in U.S. history right now, regardless of party, why is that person picking one of the auditors? Makes no sense to me at all.
No.
Well, who created the criteria for the audit? You said that there was a law passed.
Well,
Legislature,
yeah,
apparently.
SB 43
Right.
was
So-
passed
so
by the
did they
legislature,
but
the
did-
New Hampshire legislature.
Did they
passed.
establish the criteria in which they would be chosen?
I would assume they did. Now, why on earth would they usurp their own power
That
to
doesn't make any
pick
sense.
auditors? That makes no sense to me.
A lot of
either,
that's
so-
going around today, Ray. A lot of things that don't make much sense are going around. Now, I want to I bring this up. I don't know a lot about this. I just caught it just before we went on the air. The United States Supreme Court turned down Pennsylvania's voter
shocker.
issue. Yeah, it's a shocker. I don't understand.
Was it due
that.
to standing?
I don't know. Did you get that, Josh?
I didn't.
It happened so quickly. I
yeah,
didn't
I didn't get
have a
into the
chance
details
to
of it.
read the details.
It's just a shame.
Tell us about that case and why it was so important.
Well, the case, there was a couple of cases. We never forget, during the election, Samuel Alito told the folks in Pennsylvania to take the 800-something thousand ballots that were counted after the close of the election and put them to the side, okay? Now, that case also was one that John Roberts, who runs the court, refused to take as well. It would have been so simple to say, okay, the plenary power here is in the state legislatures. The Secretary of State does not have the power to change laws, nor does the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania have the right to even rule on anything. They don't have the right or the power to do it. So the
Constitutionally.
state legislatures are the ones that control the elections.
By both federal and state constitutions.
So why on earth, I mean, forget standing. The fact is what they did was unconstitutional and illegal. It should have ended there. And the same thing in Michigan. Again, the Secretary of State was not allowed to change, the rules of the game.
For any reason.
Correct. And so, it's just amazing that these court cases that were so cut and dry, these shouldn't even been 5, 4,
So
6,
what is
3.
what
They
is
should
the
have been
recourse?
9-0.
We the people, what's the recourse? These Supreme Court judges are sitting there and they say, no, we're not going to hear this case. And we're like, no, you need to hear this case. What is our recourse?
Honestly, I mean, I was talking to Mike Lindell. I interviewed him last week. I was talking to him off the record as well. And, I talked to him about what's known as a writ of quo warranto. A writ of quo warranto is a legal procedure that you can use to remove someone who's been fraudulently elected into a government position, i.e. the president. So if they would take the case, there would be enough forensic evidence, there would be enough interference from a global perspective, from China to other countries, Ukraine even involved, even Pakistan even involved. The Secretary of State in Nevada literally had and was sending out through emails to a Pakistan intelligence agency the voter rolls in Nevada. Imagine that.
Wow.
So there's been so much fraud, so much interference here that it's unbelievable that these cases have not been taken and have not been seen.
Well,
by the
just a
courts,
reminder,
which is why I say this was completely
Okay, we're running out of time.
everybody.
Just want to say one thing. Constitutionally, they do not have a lifetime appointment. It says for good behavior.
Yes.
If this is bad behavior,
And Roberts
then they need to be removed from
Roberts
office.
may be one that's skirting the edge there.
Check your Constitution,
We're-
read it, know
we're
it.
gonna- We're gonna be back on Monday, and Josh, we're gonna be watching for breaking news because tomorrow is
Tomorrow's
the
a big
official
day. Everybody,
begin.
last thing we want to say is just put your head down tonight and say a prayer
Amen.
before you go to
Amen.
bed tonight, that this audit is conducted fairly, that it is conducted efficiently, and that there's no interference from
And the
any
cooler heads
litigators
prevail
or
here.
agitators. Okay,
Yeah, the
amen.
agitators
And wisdom.
need
Pray for wisdom.
And wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see you. Josh, we thank you, and we thank Mr. Randy Miller, and we wish our best to Zach Taylor, and we will see you Monday on Backstreet Gossip. And well, how about that? Isn't that
Wow,
great?
you got a big
applause.
audience
Thank you.
tonight.